Hi students, welcome to week 10. This is the video for week 10, and by now I'm sure you're all very hard at work on your practical management report. All of the assessment for the research book was delivered on Thursday night, a day before it was due. And hopefully if you've got any issues with your assessment, you're not happy with your mark, you'll get in touch with me and we can have a look at it, because it's quite possible that there may be grounds for you to gain a few extra marks if you present a good case about how you believe you've demonstrated the criteria. Simply writing to me and sort of saying I worked really hard on this and I spent lots of hours on it is not the basis to give you more marks. But I'm happy to review any of the criteria sheets and give you a breakdown of why those marks were applied. So if you're unhappy in any way, please get in touch with me. I urge you to do that. It's great management, isn't it? Because if you have a problem, then you deal with it and you propose a way to solve that problem. So you're trying to convince me that you are owed extra marks due to how you've addressed the criteria. All right, there's been some excellent work on the forums. I see students really getting stuck in and asking questions about the assessment. Remember to read the guide. You'll find the guide on the homepage of Moodle. I was surprised to hear that some people had not read the guide before they produced Assessment 1. Some of those people managed to pass, but it was a hard thing. You definitely have to read the guide in order to produce the practical management report. It tells you what style to produce, it tells you what questions to answer, so please make sure you do that. So let's have a look at promoting change and encouraging adaptability. So how do you champion and sell new ideas to the people that work with you and around you and for you, so that you can move them all in the one direction to achieve change and achieve innovation in the workplace? So let's have a look at the competing values framework for managerial communication. The textbook talks about the 7 C's. We're going further than that, and we're looking at this framework, applying the CFV framework for managerial communication. So think of this as overlaying the circle model, the CVF circle model that we've seen before with 4 quadrants. Think of this overlaying on top of that. And it gives advice about relational messages build trust with subordinates and with team members. Transformational messages stimulate change and get people thinking about creativity. Informational messages provide facts and let people assess where the business is or the organisation is at any one point in time. And promotional messages direct action in the team members that you have and the subordinates who work for you. The SSAP for effective presentations, set, support, sequence, access and polish, is a model that's presented in the textbook. You definitely have to delve into that and look at the set, support, sequence, access and polish steps for providing effective presentations. Now, why is effective presentations part of championing and selling new ideas? Well, they're really instrumental in gathering groups of people together and selling an idea, and saying this is why we need to change, this is how we go about the change, this will be the result if we do change. And if you can do that in an effective and engaging manner, so using the tools you have as a speaker and perhaps a PowerPoint presentation, you're really going to be able to affect that change. So make sure you include these elements in any presentations that you may have to supply as a manager. It's important to look at the managerial sequence. And the managerial sequence here is looking at, say, having a hypothesis or question, do we need to change? And then designing a process for having that happen, gathering data to support your idea, analysis of that data so that you've got a strategy to go forward in a certain direction, information, provide conclusions, and finally recommendations. So if we can achieve 30% reduction in cost, we should do this. And we've estimated through analysis that this is what will occur. That will really entrench your idea as being a sound one, one that should be pursued, because management is always looking to reduce costs in modern organisational business. It's one of the challenges of the organisational environment that cost cutting is a significant goal for managers these days. Flow structures for presentations or reports. So you have to have a logical structure to presenting your report, chronological, physical, These are ways that you can structure a report so that they're easily understood by the people in the audience. You've got to make it engaging, so make sure that you're a good presenter, that you use a lot of confidence and you use a varied tone, that you don't write on the slides that they're too small so people at the back can't see them. You have to consider your audience when you're trying to prepare a presentation or report. Fueling and fostering innovation, how is this done? Well, this is a major aspect of your assessment coming up, the practical management report, and I hope you read the innovation sections in the text. Do a search if you've got an electronic textbook and search on everything to do with innovation. If you've got the text, then read ahead to innovation. I believe it starts on, I'm just looking through the text now, it starts on page 272 and there's 10 good pages there about innovation and why innovation is important. So they're essential for you to read to prepare your assessment, the practical management report. Connective, creative and critical thinking. Well, creative thinking is sometimes opposite of critical thinking. And one of the things I like to consider when you're doing creative thinking, you don't want to put any boundaries in your way. You don't want to say, oh, that's a silly idea. You want to explore it to the end. Think about going down a path and exploring it to the end. And then you can apply critical thinking to your idea. But applying critical thinking too early tends to snuff out creative thinking and snuff out ideas. So think of yourself as heading down a long country lane and you're not putting any boundaries on yourself when you're thinking creatively. It's about solving a problem and what the benefits might be and the unique ways you could go, and don't get critical thinking in there to sort of snuff out the idea before you've fully explored it. Innovation certainly can develop as a habit, and it's a great idea for managers to do that. It's one of the contemporary challenges in the managerial environment, as seen from the questions that you've been asked in your assessment, that not a lot of Australian managers invoke innovation in their management environment, and that's something Australian managers need to increase. So there's a quote here from Twyla Tharp, a famous New York choreographer, and she says there's a process that generates creativity, and if you can learn it and you can make it habitual, then you'll have great outcomes. And she certainly produced some innovation in modern dance from my research. So barriers to creative thinking. So people can resist change, they can be fearful of mistakes, they can be intolerant of any ambiguity, and sometimes you don't know all the problems before you start out in an innovative process. Judging rather than generating ideas is the default position of a lot of people. They say, no, that will never work because this is what happened when we tried it last time. Inability to relax, to let things incubate and develop. Other barriers include excessive self-criticism when you're thinking about new ways of doing things, fear of looking foolish, wanting to give the expected answer, stereotyping and limiting possibilities to what we know, a lack of or incorrect information. These are all things that affect creative thinking. So nominal group technique can be helpful here to advance this. First, you need to agree on a problem and define the problem, so that there is agreement between the group on what the problem is and what you're going to talk about. And if there's a couple of problems or 3 or 4 problems, then make sure you deal with them independently. Brainstorm to generate new ideas. Thinking out loud, talking about what could be done. Don't, if people interject and say that will never work, that's too early in the process, remind them that we'll do critical evaluation of the idea later on. But firstly, we want to just get a group of ideas. I think this works best with a whiteboard or with a poster paper and writing down the ideas that everyone has and hearing from everyone in the group. Then discuss the ideas, provide a little bit of systematic critical evaluation at this stage, and then you can have voting to choose among ideas so that you can gain consensus. All right, that's the content for this week. There are some really interesting videos down below and also some great journal articles that you can learn from. You can also use in your practical management report, but have a look at what constitutes a high distinction in the grades and results procedures. Originality is scored very highly if you're looking for a HD. All right, take care and we'll see you next week.